Welcome to this first ever transfer weekly roundup. We're going to be looking all at Derby County's latest rumours, transfer news and what is going on. Obviously, it's a big time this January window. Obviously, last year, Derby didn't improve the squad enough. They brought in players like Tony Springett and Harvey White, but that wasn't enough to add to the squad that was already there and unfortunately eventually fell out of the playoffs. This season, Paul Warne has said that he's going to do everything he can to make sure that the squad doesn't get worse, and hopefully he can improve it by talking to the board and whoever necessary. So let's take a look at the latest rumours from this week and get into all the latest gossip, what's real, what's not, and let's see what's going off. So, as I've just mentioned, we're going to be talking all about the transfer window, and this is the January week 1 episode. So as you can see on the screen, there's a range of different players which we're going to talk about in this video, and another one who isn't on this picture right now. So obviously we're going to be talking about Max Byrne and Eiran Cashin's contract situation. We're going to be talking about Corey Blackett-Taylor, if there is any real interest in him. Dan Kemp is a name that keeps popping up on social media. Obviously, we already know Tyreece John-Jules, and then obviously Charlie Savage. So let's get into it, shall we? If you're enjoying all this Derby content and are looking forward to even more, even if you're interested in F1, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below and click that notification bell to stay up to date with all my latest videos. First off, we're going to talk about the one who isn't on the screen in the previous slide, and that is Conor Coventry. Had a bit of a stop-start career, had a few injuries and unfortunately hasn't quite made it yet. But he's available for loan and Derby are interested, according to Darren O'Whitcoop on Twitter. He knows his stuff. He's often putting out all these transfer rumours and a lot of them come true. So this is a player that a lot of League One clubs are interested in. Is a central midfield player and I think is what Derby might need. I think that's something we're lacking in midfield. I think the Peterborough game showed that massively. Obviously, in the first half, it was as if the midfield was non-existent, and that's no offence to Max Byrne or Conor Hourihane, but I just don't think both of them together has the legs to make up the ground that you need to make up. So maybe Conor Coventry would be a good addition to the squad. Obviously, if that transfer does happen, we'll do a proper in-depth who is he video on Conor Coventry. So next up, Corey Blackett-Taylor. I previously did a video on Corey. I'll link that on the opposite side of the screen over there. So that if you want to go and check that out and learn all about him, you can do that. But he's currently at Charlton Athletic. There's no further news on that transfer. Obviously, we know that a deal broke down in the summer as a result of Eiran Cashin not moving on to Brighton. So I don't know if we're even going to go back in for it, but there's no latest news on that. So that's one to keep an eye on. Obviously, his contract's up in the summer, and obviously things might progress as the window goes on. Obviously, right now, we're only 5 days in. This is the end of week 1. So obviously, it could still happen. There's plenty of time, as there is with all of these transfers. So just keep your eyes peeled on Twitter, keep your eyes peeled on my YouTube, and I'll make a video if anybody signs. So Dan Kemp, there's a lot of rumours about Dan Kemp. He's recently been called from his loan spell. There's lots of accounts on Twitter saying that he's coming to Derby. Personally, I don't think he is. There's nothing from any real reputable sources linking Dan Kemp to Derby County. There's only random accounts, transfer centre this, transfer centre that. So I'm not 100% sure about this transfer. Is he good enough to play at League One level? Probably. Do I think Derby are going to get him? Probably not. I think he'll stay at his current club. So it's one of them ones where I'm not 100% sure. I don't think so. I've not seen anything reputable, so I wouldn't want to turn around and say, yes, we're signing him. Next on the list is Charlie Savage. Obviously, Derby used to have Robbie Savage, Charlie's dad, as a former player. So Charlie might know the area from that period. Obviously, he's at Reading at the moment. Only signed for them in the summer, but obviously Reading's in a bit of turmoil. Behind the scenes, you've got a player, Sam Smith, coming out and saying there was essentially sold a dream and it's not what they made it out to be at the club. So is that something that could turn Charlie's head to move clubs? Obviously, the rumour is that Derby have had an offer rebuffed, but it's only coming out from Reading's side. We've not heard anything from Derby's side yet, so it'll be interesting to hear what they have to say. Interesting to see if anything is said. Obviously, if Derby are interested, they might not say anything, just to keep it under wraps. Try not to make a big thing out of it. But I think Charlie Savage would be an excellent signing. I think we've obviously got to look to the future, and he's a young lad. As a midfield player that's very versatile. Last season, he played as a false nine for Forest Green Rovers. Like, he's played all over the park for Reading. But is it time that he moves on? Is he worried about what's going on at Reading? That's some things that could play into the mind. We saw it at Derby a few years ago with administration. A lot of players in January decided, you know what, I don't know whether this club's going to carry on. So we've got to look for moves elsewhere. Festi Eberseli is a key example. So, but I think Charlie Savage would be a perfect signing. I think he could replace someone like Max Bird. I haven't seen a lot of Charlie Savage, but he was highly thought of at United. They quite like him as Reading fans. So I think he could be a player that could replace Max Bird if he moves on in the summer, or even if Max Bird was to move on this window. That's obviously something that we're going to get into. But Charlie Savage is a player that I'd have an eye on, and I'd try and get him in if we can. And obviously, Tyreece John-Jules, currently on loan at Derby County. And we already know Paul Warne is interested in extending this deal. What the most recent information that we have is that Paul Warne has told the club that he wants to keep him, and it's now up to those upstairs, the likes of Stephen Pearce and David Clowes, to make sure all the money is where it needs to be and make sure Arsenal agree to the terms and conditions of the deal. Obviously, Tyreece John-Jules, I believe, is out of contract this summer, so if Derby can keep him till the end of the season, he stays fit, starts scoring more goals, then obviously it's an opportunity for Tyreece to find himself a permanent home at Derby County. And as a striker, that's something that obviously, James Collins is scoring goals, but Tyreece John-Jules could be that striker that we haven't had for years. He's got pace, he's quick, he can score goals, he's skillful, and he could be exactly what we need to have that link up with the likes of Mendes Lang and Kane Wilson, and we could then begin to have an interchangeable front three, because I think at the moment we're a bit too static up front with James Collins. That's no offence to Collins, he's good at what he's good at, but I think you can't hurt having a roaming three, a bit like what Peterborough had at the weekend. And then we get on to Eiran Cashin, obviously a massive player for Derby County. I believe he made his 100th appearance for Derby at the weekend. And the latest news on Eiran Cashin is that his optional contract extension clause has been taken up by the club. Obviously, by no means does this mean that he is staying. It just means that Derby have protected his value for, at minimum, the next 6 to 12 months. We could keep him until next January. Obviously, it's a decision that Derby will have to make even when an offer comes in or in the summer. Obviously, we saw a similar situation with Jason Knight last year. We extended his contract with his contract option, and then he saw himself move to Bristol City for a rumoured fee of around £2 million, with Kane Wilson coming the other way in part of that deal. So Eiran Cashin could still move on. It could happen this window. It could happen in the next one. Obviously, Paul Warne is hoping to keep the likes of Cashin around, and he's already said that if it isn't a miraculous offer, he can't see him leaving. Next up is Max Bird. He's got a contract on the table, but he doesn't have a contract option like Cashin does. So it's a big decision for Derby. It's a big decision for Max Bird. The contract's been on the table for a couple of weeks, I believe, and he's yet to sign it. Obviously, I don't know the ins and outs. No one does apart from Bird, his agent, and the club. So obviously, it's massive that we don't make this a thing of Bird doesn't want to stay, Bird's this, Bird's that. What we need to do is we need to make sure we keep positive and hope that he stays. For me, though, if he doesn't want to stay, I think we need to get rid of him this window, because the money we can get now is going to be a lot more than we get from compensation in the summer. So if we get rid of him now, we could bring in Jensen Weir on loan from Brighton. Not a name that's been linked with Derby, but he's just been recalled from Brighton. You've got Conor Coventry, who we're apparently already interested in, and Charlie Savage, who we've had an offer rebuffed for. You could also then have a look at bringing in Blackett-Taylor and a striker. Who that striker would be, I don't know. So it's a big decision for Max Bird to make on his career. Obviously, if Derby go up, he'd probably want to stay, but that's a case of 6 months down the line, do we know? We don't right now, and we're not in a position of automatic promotion, so it's one of those where it's a 50-50 decision. So thank you for watching this transfer weekly roundup for week 1. These videos are going to come out every Friday at around 4 o'clock. I'm going to record them on Friday mornings. Right now it's 11 o'clock. So if anything happens in between, I'll try and update, but obviously no guarantees. If any signings are made, I will make those videos on Derby players, and we'll talk about any players who leave too. So keep your eyes peeled for all that content. Make sure you subscribe down below, hit the like button, and I'll catch you in my next video. Be sure to go and find me on TikTok, pictured here, and Twitter, pictured here. These are the places where I'll keep you all up to date with all my upcoming videos and my thoughts and feelings around the Formula 1 and football weekend.